Welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me for another one. So today we are going to color in Marin from My Dress Up Darling. So you're going to see my full coloring process on this video. So please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. So as you can see, I already have my outline done and I've already put down all my base layers. So right now I'm going to put a new layer on top of each of my base layers and put on the clipping mask. So the first thing I do like shading in would be the face. Working on skin I find a lot easier to work on first, other than like all the clothing and all that. So I'm putting only light shadows and light highlights on Marin's face here. So as I'm coloring in, I do want to explain like the concept behind this art piece. So in the show, Marin wants to be a cosplayer. So I wanted her to dress up as 02 from Darling in the Franxx. Reason being, they both have the title related to Darling. Kind of a funny coincidence, but I thought it would just be cool looking to put her in a 02 costume. But to make sure it's still Marin, I put on her clothes that she was wearing in episode 2 of the anime. And of course, her blonde hair and pink eyes. So moving on from face, I'm gonna start working on her chest now. And if you're too immature for this part, feel free to skip. Alright, so I did put some light highlights in there and some deep shadowing. We're gonna leave that for now and gonna move on to her hands. After a quick section on the hands, I'm gonna start working on her abs and stomach section. This part I usually find the most difficult because drawing abs is something I'm still working on. So please, don't judge too harshly. So for shading in, I didn't want to make her look way too jacked, so I just made sure that I didn't put too much lines on her abs. And moving on from there, I'm just going to continue working on her hands and fingers. So when working on an art piece, try not to linger on one section for too long. So my advice is just to move on to a different section and refresh your mind. So now that I did the bases of Marin's skin, we're going to move on to the clothing. So in this section, we do have to make it deep red and deep blacks. And here I'm going to add some highlighted parts. And now we're going to shade in the upper torso part of her costume. So I know the headpiece is made out of metal, so we're going to make that a little shinier later on. So this part of the headpiece, I do want it to look like metal, so I'm going to make the shading a little more shinier. Alright, and as you can see, I'm moving back and forth between the shading on the bottom part and the shading on our headpiece. So here, what I really like to do with metal is make the highlights really bright. And then the shadows really dark. Okay, now we're just working on the inseams here, all the shadowing on her clothing. So moving on, we're gonna go to the bra section of Marin's costume. So for those that have seen the show, you have seen this bikini that she is wearing. I was going back and forth on it if I wanted to put the white parts on the flower, but I decided to just leave it pink in the middle. So this section, I was going to show how I did Marin's eyes, but I'm actually going to make a whole separate video for that, so be on the lookout for that in a couple days. So after working on her clothing, I'm going to start working on her hair just a little bit. So for hair, I'm still fairly new at anime hair. I've been drawing it in a different style and shading it in a different style, so I'm still trying to correct the way I do it. But basically, I just put in the shadows and then make deeper shadows and then possibly just blur it. So in this section, I was using the technical pen to shade it in, but then I used Gaussian blur to smooth it out. And as you can see, I'm using the blend tool just to make sure that it's not too sharp. Okay, now I'm doing the same thing on the bottom parts of her hair. I'm just gonna make it more exaggerated, all the shadows. So now that that is done, we're gonna work on the top part of her head. So for me, this is still a work in progress. I'm still learning how to make these types of hair strokes. But what I found best is to make a blob first and then start erasing it and then forming this type of shape that you see here. Alright, so that was my full coloring process. I hope that you guys enjoyed that. I did a lot of rendering afterwards, but I could make a whole separate video for another drawing in the future for that as well. So this is my fully finished piece of Marin. If you want to go see the full version and the other version, please go to my store. The link is in my bio. Other than that, thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Hope you learned something. I will do more of these in the future. And just a reminder, please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel.